Ignore this. In my quest to find a water bottle, I failed. But I did find a Mountain Dew. And I do need something because, as previously discussed, I'm pulling double time today. In observation of the rise of self-help philosophy, I've devised a strategy to help you and me figure out how to navigate frustrating and awkward social interactions that we all deal with. As an introvert, which Joe laughs at me for saying I'm an introvert because I stand on stage, but as an introvert, I promise, the hardest thing to do is just say no. So that is my strategy. Just say no. What is more awkward than being asked to give someone something that belongs to you? To do something that makes you uncomfortable, to spend an afternoon engaged in a social obligation. We've all been in similar situations. So I want you to close your eyes for me for a second and just imagine we're gonna go somewhere. A homeless man approaches you on the street and he gives you the normal spiel, right? Homeless, hungry, down on his luck, no money. But the problem is, what if he's an addict? Or a druggie, or a drunkard? And as a good Christian, God forbid I enable his behavior. However, if you use my new ideology of just saying no, life is suddenly easy. Just tell him no. If your anxiety is beating you down and you can't be bothered to interact with this individual, just tell him you don't have cash. Does it really matter if you actually do or not? He doesn't know. Just say no. Your friend asks you to help him move. No. Hey, I need somebody to talk to. No. Not interested. If I throw my back out helping you move, are you going to pay my medical bills? Didn't think so. Labor's not free. And imagine I work all week slaving away, and a friend asks if we can talk because they're going through a hard time. Yeah, I'm going through a hard time too. It's called life. And if I spend all my emotional energy dealing with all your stuff, then I'm not going to have anything left when I go back to that job that I hate. Other people just aren't worth the time. Let's face it, people hurt you, they betray you, they talk behind your back, they dismiss you, they isolate you, leave you. People can be terrible. But no one actually thinks any of what I was saying is like I actually believe that, right? Obviously, this is like an overblown satire to show everybody a point, and I'm going to come in and be like, no. Just a joke to get laughs. But in a lot of ways, a lot of us genuinely think this way and do these things. And I say a lot of us, I think there's important context that a lot of times when I sit down to write, unless I'm writing about a specific book in the Bible, I write from a place of personal experience. I want to tell you a story. Emmy and I have some friends. They're a really sweet married couple, and about a year ago, the husband was having stomach pain, intense stomach pain, like the kind that, I need to go see a doctor, I can't move. And he went to the doctor, and they found that his small intestine was eating his large intestine, which, if you don't know, that is not supposed to happen. And instantly, they scheduled him for emergency surgery, right? Like the kind of surgery that you have no time to prepare for or pray over or anything like that. No time to save, no time to plan. The kind of surgery that puts you in immediate crippling medical debt. And the wife had a job, but the husband was the primary money maker for the household. So it was known that they would be struggling for a while until they could get it sorted. And when Emmy and I heard this, first we prayed, and then we did what any good Midwest Christian would do and started a meal train. Got a bunch of people together, started calling people, all their mutual friends, the people they were close with, the people we see them with all the time, the people they invite over to their house, share dinners with. We messaged over like a dozen people, our mutual friends with this couple. We messaged them all in a group chat, which is effective, but also the most obnoxious way to get a hold of a dozen people, if you're curious. And we got all the same kind of excuses. I don't have time. I'm too busy. That's just asking a lot out of me right now. I don't have the money. And I didn't tell this story to gloat about the fact that Emmy and I started a meal train. I'm telling this story because not one of them saw the need of their friend and stopped to help. Not one person in this group of a dozen that we got a hold of. Their friends, the people they spend all their time with. None of them reached out. See, psychologists call this the bystander effect. And it's the idea that the more people who witness a need, someone else will notice. But before this phenomenon had a name, psychologically, Christ was already describing it perfectly in Luke chapter 10. I'm sure this is a story many of you are familiar with. And Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road. And when he saw the man, he passed to the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. While I'm reading this, I'm sure you have a little internal dialogue or monologue. If you're like me, my brain is a little bit overactive. We'd like to imagine we're the Samaritan. We're the do-gooder, the person that does the right thing, comes in and saves the day. But if we're honest, most days we're probably the priest, crossing to the other side of the road. We convince ourselves we didn't have time. We tell ourselves someone else will stop and help. We avoid eye contact. We cross to the other side of the road. We're busy. We're tired. We're protecting ourselves. Protecting our peace. But when you think about it, how often do you go out of your way for your fellow man? And the reason I say that so strangely, your fellow man, is because I'm not talking about your family. And I'm not even talking about the story that I told about your friends. I'm not even talking about people you have an emotional connection to at all. Maybe it's someone you're never going to see again. I'd venture to guess that a majority of us in the world would cross to the other side of the road, just like the priest. Pretending we don't see the tears, the scars, the bruises. And then when it's our turn, we look around and find that we're suddenly the man on the side of the road. And when you're in that position, you pray, "Dear God, I hope someone stops and asks if I'm okay. I hope someone reaches out to me." See, the thing is, we were meant to coexist. And we were meant to love one another and love our neighbors as ourselves. In 1 John chapter 3, it says, "If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth." Another story. I told this morning. I remember about 5 years ago, I was at work, and I was leaving. And I work at Costco right now, part-time, but I also used to work at Costco part-time. And I was leaving, and if you've ever been there, the registers from the registers all the way to the exit, it's a huge, it's a walk, all right? It is a walk. And there's a desk for the managers to use over there in the corner. And I remember leaving the break room and walking past that desk and seeing one of my supervisors sat at that desk, clearly hiding her face. And I walked right past her. I probably even sped up. Emotions are uncomfortable. It's none of my business why she's crying. It's not important. It's not my job. I just work here. Pick one of those reasons. The things we tell ourselves. And I got all the way to the door. I walked all the way to the other side of the building. And the entire time I felt God pulling at my heart, and I ignored it. I got all the way to the door and was about to walk out. And I sighed. And begrudgingly, I turned around and walked all the way to that desk and sat there and had a conversation. And I'm not telling that story to glorify myself either, because I didn't want to do it. And I tried really hard not to. So what changed? I feel like over the last few years, we've seen kind of a shift. It started with the push for people to do self-care, to take care of self, right? You need to love yourself so that you can love others. But somewhere along the way, healthy self-care has become something much bigger. We stopped asking, how can I become healthier so I can love others better? And started asking, how can I protect my own peace at all costs? It feels like we've traded servant-heartedness for self-preservation. Philippians 2 says this, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others." Growing up in youth group, we used to talk about joy, the secret to joy. How many of you know what I'm talking about? It's an acronym. It means Jesus, then others, and then yourself. The secret to happiness. The bystander effect doesn't only happen when someone else is hurting. Sometimes we become bystanders in our own lives. We find we aren't participating really in the life that God has given us. We're simply watching it happen. Just allowing things to happen. Allowing life to just roll on. We drift, clock in, clock out, scroll, sleep, do it again. Just going through the motions. Being chocked full of emotions and overwhelmed by the world, by tragedy, war, sickness, death. Name literally anything that you feel like you are powerless to do anything about. And therein lies the desire to help ourselves, right? To gain some semblance of control. Well, if I cannot control the world, I'm going to control my world, my bubble, my insulated little sphere. Scripture says this in Mark chapter 8. Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it." See, I find we obsess over world issues. And it is not a bad thing to be informed. I would never say that. But we obsess over tragedy. We obsess over war. And we obsess over the feeling of being powerless. And the blinders are so on tight. We're looking in another country. We're looking a world over and passing the person right next to us and leaving them to fend for themselves. Protecting our peace from the people in your city, but not from media that causes you nothing but fear and anxiety. Like I said, I'm not advocating for ignorance. I would never do that. But we were meant to help others. There is fullness and fulfillment in the service of others. There is power in the service of others. There is purpose in the service of others. I ask you not to fall into the trap of self-preservation. See, so often we see people talk about self-help. And self-help is fine. A little me time, a little work-life balance, right? That's the elusive one, work-life balance. I'm still trying to figure that one out. Mental health, keeping that in check, which is a very real issue. This whole idea centered around keeping your cup full, right? Keeping yourself full in a good place. People love talking about keeping their cup full. And that's great. That's great. Rest matters, Sabbath matters, mental health matters. And I don't say those things to brush past them. They're all serious things that need to be taken seriously to preserve. But a cup is not meant to stay full forever. God fills cups so that they overflow. He blesses us so we become a blessing. He comforts us so we can comfort others. He forgives us so we can forgive. A full cup sitting on a shelf doesn't accomplish anything. It exists to be poured out. When I shared this, I always send my sermons to Pastor Christy. And she, in her teacherly ways, goes over them with a red pen and circles and draws arrows. She gives me very, very constructive criticism, and is a primary reason why I get on stage and seem so professional. But I sent her this sermon. I was like, I think this is the final cut. I think I'm done. I think this is great, and I'm satisfied with this. And she goes, she reads it. She's like, I love all the changes. And then she texts me, one time we found a cup that was full of milk that we forgot to pour out. And it had been like an hour since I texted her, so I did not know why the heck she texted me that. So I was really confused. And then I realized she's obviously referencing the thing she just read. But that made me think. I asked her, how long was it sitting there? And she goes, no clue, no idea. What was in it? Milk. Disgusting. She's like, it was like it like coagulated. It had been there for so long, like a cup stress ball. And that's disgusting. I'm going to be honest. That is brutally disgusting, and I hate that I said that out loud. But it made me think. What happens to water when it sits? It stagnates. And stagnant water is dangerous, if you didn't know. It becomes infested with bacteria. It becomes toxic. There are people that like to go explore abandoned buildings, right? I'm not one of those people, but I've seen people talk about it on the internet. And one of their big things they talk about is never touch water. Like, I saw an image of a guy who was exploring an abandoned movie theater, and it had flooded. And the entire seating area was full of water. And he was, like, putting his hands in it and all this other stuff. And pretty much every comment on that video is, like, he's going to get some sort of weird illness in, like, a few days. Like, you should not have done that. Don't touch that water. You don't know how long it's been there. And I think it's interesting when we look at ourselves under that lens, because I think we're seeing it happen. When you stagnate and you fill your cup and that liquid stays there, right? That peace stays there. It becomes toxic. It becomes dangerous. Second Corinthians says this: "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." I ask you not to spend your whole life protecting your cup. Be the person who stops and notices, the person who brings the meal, person who makes the phone call. I'm asking you to be the Samaritan. It was very hard for me to write this sermon. Christy's original criticism was that I was being too general, which was true. And I think the reason for that is this is something I personally care a lot about. Being in ministry, it's all people. The entire thing is people. The only reason this building exists is for people. So I spend a lot of time pouring my cup out, right? Pouring into people, having conversations, that kind of thing. That's the job. That's the whole job of being a pastor. But I've seen this happen. I have friends who pour out into others constantly all the time. And they begin to feel resentment. So don't think I'm telling you to pour out until your cup is dry and then keep going. But something I've noticed in my own life, and maybe I'm just strange. I mean, I'm definitely strange, but this might not be the reason, is that when I'm having a bad day, when I'm feeling inadequate, insecure, when I feel like I am feeling anxious, there is literally nothing that makes me feel better than doing something for someone else. Saying something kind. Maybe that person you haven't texted in a while, shoot them a message to remind them the value they have in your life. Or if you know someone who's struggling, ask if you can help. There's a scripture that I didn't put in this that I kind of wish that I did. So I'm going to paraphrase it. The gist is, when you see someone struggling without food or clothes, don't just pray, "May God bring you food and clothing." Be the hands and feet. Be the person that brings food. Be the person that brings clothing. Be the Samaritan. because there will be a day where you'll be the one lying beside the road. And you'll be praying that someone else doesn't just decide to just say no. Will you guys pray with me?